You're listening to Drinks and a Movie with your host, Rudy. Spoiler alert.
Drinks and a Movie podcast. Everybody, thank you for tuning in and giving this very special episode a listen. I'm considering this the season 2 finale of this podcast. So just to let everybody know, I'm going to be taking a little hiatus for the next month or two, just pretty much all through summer. I don't think we'll release another episode until maybe late August or September, because I just have been falling behind a bit and really need to focus on work and other projects I've got going on currently. Summer is kind of one of my really busy times. So rather than just inconsistently kind of released episodes here and there, I want to make sure that I can keep recording and have a slate of episodes coming up. And then when I have time to edit, just have them all kind of ready to go. So we've got a great list of movies that we're going to cover in the future, as well as drinks. So please stay tuned. And if you're new to listening to the show, just check out all our past episodes. We've got quite the library now at this point, so you can look back and check it out. Today's episode is very, very special. Okay, we're going to wrap up this season 2 with an interview with Jimmy Santiago Baca. Okay, an award-winning writer, poet. He is the screenwriter of my all-time favorite movie that I definitely want to cover in numerous episodes, Blood In, Blood Out, from 1993, directed by Taylor Hackford, and yeah, again, written by Jimmy Santiago Baca. This is a little different, where there's not much of an interview. I only ask a couple questions. We were just chatting, and then he started rolling and sharing his stories, and you know, I just kind of got pulled into it, and he's just someone that you just got to listen to. So, you know, he shares some experience with being incarcerated, how he started writing, you know, what kind of inspired him, how Blood In, Blood Out came about. And he drops a couple bombshells here on us as well in regards to a sequel that is currently in the works as far as him writing goes, and, you know, some little involvement he had with American Me, which I was completely unaware of. So there's a lot of interesting just stories and history here that I hope everybody enjoys. So please share it. Please subscribe if you're not subscribed already. You know, my mission is to get more Chicano artists on this show. So yeah, spread the word and share it, and let's get a bigger audience so that, you know, I can hopefully get more filmmakers and writers and actors just as guests on the show. You know, that would be really great. And that's kind of the mission here ultimately, is to, you know, get that specific perspective. And I know that there's a lot of people like myself that dig these films and would just like to hear more about how they got made and how they came to be and the artists behind them. Without further ado, please enjoy this episode with Jimmy Santiago Baca. Thank you.
You know, that the idea of writing, there's a couple of things I think about when I think about that. I don't know, you know, as a child, I was enthralled with stories, even though I was a very naive child. I believed in the magic of storytelling. My first ones were Mayberry and Gunsmoke and Disney World. And since I was in an orphanage, they showed us a lot of Ben-Hur and Jesus Christ films and stuff like that. So I was caught up in heroes, I guess. Tonto and what's that guy's name? The other guy.
Oh, is that the Lone Ranger?
Yeah, the Lone Ranger.
Yeah.
Tonto. And what about those guys? What about those kids that had that little pit bull? What was his name with the little black eye?
Oh, the Little Rascals?
The Rascals. Yeah. And what about Howdy Doody?
Yeah, yeah.
And what about the Roadrunner? And he was always getting beat up by the coyote was always getting outsmarted by the Roadrunner.
Yeah.
That was the beginning of my literary career, was watching black and white TV, you know? And I was not very critical. I accepted what I saw, and I didn't ever have a comparative or a critical analysis of whatever I was reading, or I wasn't reading, but whatever I was seeing. And the few things that I did read were mostly mnemonic, basically memory. and that was religious catechisms and stuff. So it was kind of limited. Hold on a second. It was kind of limited. I got this new computer, and I forget every time you touch the screen or something, it goes to Belgrade. I don't know where the hell it goes, but anyway,
Yeah.
I'm learning how to do it. I went through the thing about laptops. I bought 4 Apple laptops, all brand new in the last 3-4 years, and I broke the keyboard within a month.
Wow.
And yeah, no kidding. And I thought to myself, they don't make laptops for Chicanos who work with their hands. They make laptops for these little, I don't even know want to say it, but they make laptops for these little whatever in Silicon Valley and stuff, where they just tap very lightly. And it's not, when you run into a Chicano kid, 9 times out of 10, the kid has done some physical labor.
Yeah.
So they had to make a laptop for kids who work physically and then do school on the side like so many of us do.
Yeah.
So I went from there, and I was institutionalized. So I went through a lot of institutions. And the crazy thing about institutions, as bad as they are, and they're bad, and they're only there, they're not there for all the official purposes that are stated in their policies. That's all bullshit. They're there to keep people of color oppressed. They're there to keep people, to occupy our culture. They're there to take what they can get from us at the least expense to them and the most money to them. So the orphanage and the detention center, gladiator school, county jail, prison, all of that. The one thing I learned that they couldn't take from us, they took our bodies and put us in, separated us from society, made us marginalized. But the thing that they couldn't take from us was our stories. But what happens is that the great contradiction is people can have stories, but if you take away their need to express themselves, then what good are the stories? If you colonize the people so much that they believe their stories don't matter, or if you colonize the people so much that they have to take drugs so that they can forget their stories, it's very disturbing. So during those periods of time when we were isolated and none of the guys had access to drugs, we didn't have any drugs available to us. Our recourse was storytelling. And I guess that was my first real literary experience was listening to their stories and feeling a sort of compassion for them, feeling a sort of, I didn't have any family or parents, so I was capable of listening without comparing my family to theirs. I was able to listen to them.
Right.
And I guess that's where my love of my raza came in, was I saw how much modest happiness they experienced and how little they were satisfied with. Very early on, when I was only like 11, 12, or 13, I remember, I don't know where the thoughts came from, but I remember wanting to take over the detention center. I remember wanting to put the guards in jail. I remember wanting to occupy it and jail the jailers and jail the judges. And that, I guess, was a story in itself. But the kids that I grew up with in institutions, they were just hurt. They'd been trampled. That's all. They were not criminals or anything. The institution criminalized them. So I lived within that culture of oppression. And kids talk about their moms or dads. Most of them were addicts or drunks. And we were sort of the garbage of humanity. But you could tell the love between them on visiting days when they went to see their moms or something. You could see it in them, and you could also sense in the letters that they wrote their girlfriends and stuff. Bunch of stuff like that. Anyway, it was all boiling up in me. I didn't really have a love. I didn't have a girlfriend, and I wasn't really a fighter, but I was a warrior. I fought for what was right, and that really is the nucleus of Blood In, Blood Out. Because when you start really young, uh, being a conscionable person, and this is what society tries to make us believe. They try to make us believe that because you're in an institution or prison or jail or detention center, that for some reason you must be immoral or unconscionable and you must be incapable of being right, of being a leader, of being a moral standard. And they try to make us believe with all the advertising and all the bullshit books and all the promotions and all the money awards and stuff that only those who go through college and get degrees are awarded the attention of being moral human beings, when in fact, it's the opposite. Some of the most corrupt people that ever walked the earth are the ones who are political heroes, or cultural heroes, and stuff like that. So the idea that you can't find a man of courage and integrity in institutions is the biggest myth ever. And when I started writing Blood In, Blood Out in my head, and you've seen Blood In, Blood Out, you can attest to this. Blood In, Blood Out is not an apology to anybody. It comes at you with integrity. It comes at you with compassion. It comes at you with moral rectitude. It comes at you with the highest standard of a human being's morality.
Yeah.
And that's why it scared the living shit out of white people. That's why black people ran to the corners, because all of a sudden we have Chicanos who are incredibly intelligent, who are leaders, who speak clearly, who know what they want, who are tired of the oppression and stuff like that. We didn't see people in movies like that. The only ones we saw were on Lassie, when you had that Mexican guy who would milk the cows or something, that Mexican guy, or Encanto or Zorro, when you had all these Mexicans who every single one of them was a criminal, And here comes this movie, Blood In, Blood Out, and it has these really sharp, intelligent Chicano actors in it, man. Some of them are just, they don't lie, they don't cheat, they don't steal. They're in a criminal enterprise, but there's an integrity to the criminal enterprise that they have. They're not bullshit artists the way we have our leaders today in society. I don't care if it's a governor or a priest or a pope. Everybody steps up and bullshits you. No matter what they say, they mean something else.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that sort of sinks down into society. So the first premise of Blood In, Blood Out was to tell the truth as I experienced it, and give these people some sort of integrity that they already had, but express it through cinema and through writing.
Yeah.
And you saw what happened. The whole world embraced it. The whole world welcomed us. The whole world wanted more. I mean, for 20 years, people have been screaming for Blood In, Blood Out too, which I'm working on,
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. So I just finished writing, in fact. I had to stop. You're the one stopping Blood In, Blood Out too from being finished.
Sorry, everybody.
So if anybody out there wants to attack me, attack this guy. He's the one that stopped me from writing this morning. But but anyway, so here I am writing. I think I've got 9 or 10 books of poetry, pretty famous all over the world. And I love my life as a poet. I'm pretty poor. I've got 2 kids, married to a wild Italian who I divorced later on. But some lady, some famous actress in London, buys a book of mine in a bookstore. And she reads it. It's called Martin and Meditations on the South Valley. Mm-hmm. And it won the American Book Award, became a bestseller and all that. And she gets back to her beautiful home in the theater district of London and calls her husband, who's one of the top directors in the world, Taylor Hackford, right?
Yeah.
And she says, have you heard of this guy? And he says, no. So he calls up Luis Valdez, and Luis Valdez says, oh, yeah, he's the anomaly. He's a guy, the weird dude no one can make sense out of. How could he go and do that life and come out a great writer? Nobody understands this guy. He's probably a android or something. He's probably one of these guys that has fake brains, fake balls, fake eyes. And he's probably not even a human being. He's probably a UFO, some alien guy. They call me an anomaly. This guy, Jimmy Santiago Baca, came out of nowhere and winning all these awards, and he's constantly on tour worldwide. Who the hell is he? The question that I was trying to answer myself was, who the hell, how, you know how naive I was? I'll tell you how naive I was. They called me from Yale University and said, we want to give you the Wallace Stevens chair. I said, cool. I told my vieja, hey, they want to give us a Wallace Stevens chair. So they gave me some money. They flew me out to New Haven, went out there. I went to this seminar table or this dinner table where all the faculty were there. And I had these guys come in with their little rowing boat sweaters with the Y's on it, singing these little rowing boat stupid songs, you know, with oh the rowing boat, what that shit. Anyway, I'm sitting there, you know, and guess who I'm sitting next to? I'm sitting next to Wallace Stevens' granddaughter, and she's drunk as a skunk. She's like, hey, you know, and I'm like, hey, what's up? I know this, you know, but I'm sitting there and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting for my chair. And then I realized they don't mean a chair. They mean, you know, they're going to put my name in this post that I occupy the Wallace Stevens chair.
Yeah.
And I told the dude, I said, dude, that's not what I want. I want a real chair. I want to take it back home with me, you know? And then he said, that's so I called up my vieja, and she thought that I got the chair and sold it for some coke and partied down in the Lower East Side of New York. I said, no, I didn't, there's no chair, hon. But she thought I was lying. So I said, no, that's not the way this world up here works, you know?
Yeah.
They don't give real chairs to Chicanos, you know. So anyway, I was naive as hell. But then, you know, Taylor called me a few times, came out to visit me and this and that. And then I remember I made a promise to a guy in prison. I was doing 5 flat years, and I was already into my 6.5 year because the warden refused to let me go because I refused to cooperate. When I went to prison, I immediately said, I'm not working, I'm not lifting a finger, I'm not even walking, I'm not doing shit. You're going to run this prison without me. So, and all the Chicanos went out to the fields to work. I said, screw that shit, I'm not going anywhere. Everybody went out. I said, nope, not going to participate. And so I kind of broke down the prison system as a one-man demolition. And I didn't know that I was doing what Dalai Lama, well, not the Dalai Lama, I didn't know what Gandhi and Martin Luther King or Thoreau, I didn't know that peaceful protests, you know? Right. I didn't know I was doing that. Mm-hmm. But by refusing to participate with civil disobedience, I upset the warden, the guards, the convicts, everybody was upset. And I thought, wow, this is crazy. Instead of fighting and trying to escape, all I got to do is do nothing and everybody goes crazy. So they put me in the dungeon for a couple of years because along with that civil disobedience, the warden was sending to my cell guys that were just assholes. You know, they just wanted to fight. So every time the cell opened, I jumped out and started beating the shit out of them, you know? Yeah. And then I got a worse reputation as a fighter. And I said, I'm not a fighter. I just don't want anybody in my cell, you know? And especially people like you that come in here. I don't want nobody here. So every time I fought them, the warden said, well, that's another 3 months in the basement, you know? So I ended up staying there 3 years. And that's when I started writing. I was asking Bonafide and Chrome Dome and some of the other guys that I put in Blood In, Blood Out. I was asking them, well, how do you write a letter, you know? And they said, and they respected the heck out of me. For some reason, they really, really liked me. These were killers. These were stone cold psychotic freaking killers.
Mm-hmm.
And they just respected the hell out of me because I don't know why, but I wasn't a fighter. I wasn't a killer, but I wasn't going to back down either from anybody. But I was learning how to read and write, and something about them and my endeavor, my effort to learn how to read and write made them really respect me, man. Because I wasn't going to fight them or anything.
Yeah.
They just knew this guy. I mean, day and night, I'm going through my dictionary trying to figure out words. They were really, really impressed by that. And that's when I started learning how to write. And I wrote my girlfriend. And well, I didn't have a girlfriend, but I thought I was trying to make her my girlfriend. And by trying to persuade her, and I guess that's the impetus for a great writer. When you start writing, you write to persuade either the universe or someone human, or how much you love them, and to sort of bring that to you, bring the universe to you, bring the woman to you, let them understand you in the world. Become a known person to the world. And the effort, the conundrum, the dilemma, the puzzle is to make yourself known to the world. How do you do that? Some guys go out and they buy a Bugatti, somebody a watch, or they get or they shoot somebody, or they become drug dealers. They try to make the world know them, and by knowing them, it empowers them. It makes their self-esteem, glow. I didn't want to be a drug dealer. I didn't want a Bugatti. I wanted a woman to love me for who I was, even though I was just discovering who I was. And I began to read a lot. I wanted to see how other people in the world lived and stuff. So as I began to write, and I write, books were published and stuff. I came out, I was doing okay and stuff. And this woman reads the books, and to him, the director calls me up, "Can you come to Hollywood?" Sure, I come. I get to Hollywood. He says, "Can you write this kind of story?" I said, "I'll blow the wheels off this wagon." So I just sat down and I just wrote every single word, and I kicked ass. And the other guys that are on the screenplay, I invited them in. I gave them credit, even though the director said, "Nobody ever does that. Are you crazy?" Because I was always constantly doing stuff. I was constantly doing stuff that nobody did. And so I, even though the guys didn't write a word, I said, I want to give him credit. He's been here for 25 years. He never got a movie. Give the man credit. What is it to me? It ain't nothing to me. So I wrote it. I was going to leave. They said, "No, can you please go to San Quentin with us? Can you please be an actor?" I said, I don't want to act. I want to go home. So I said, okay. So I went to San Quentin, became an actor. I quit during half of the movie. I said, "The hell with this shit. I'm not going to act." So I split. I had a nervous breakdown, and all the actors went to my place where I was staying in the Bay Area, and they all told me to come back to this movie because they couldn't make it without me. I'm not going back to no damn movie. Screw you guys. So they came, and Montana came, and I love Montana. He was like, "You got to come back, bro." And this whole time I'm doing this, right? I got the movie going. We got it going. We're doing great. I went back and we were doing it. It was great. Months previous to us filming in San Quentin, I helped Eddie write the first 12 minutes of American Me. He came to Albuquerque and he talked all this bullshit, right? So I began to help him write because he wanted to buy Blood In, Blood Out, but when I wanted to sell it to him, he didn't want to pay for it, cabrón. So I said, "Screw you." So I gave it to Taylor, right? Yeah. Me and Taylor went to work on it, right? And I worked with Taylor hand in hand, and Taylor was so freaking cool. He was a cool cat.
Yeah.
A really good white boy,
Yeah.
Eddie starts bitching and whining. Okay, you know what? No. I said, "Dude, you know what? Cállate, hombre. I try to give it to you. You act all this and that. Get out of here." And so I said, "I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll go ahead and help you do American Me." So he came to Albuquerque. We went to a hotel room, La Posada, downtown, Central and Second. I went upstairs to the suite, and we started working on the Pachuco scene. And all of a sudden, he tells me that he's going to make Montana get raped. I said, "What?" He says, I said, dude, I'm out of this. I'm out of here. I'm gone. I'm out of here. You got to pay me for whatever I gave you, 12 pages. I'm not going to work on this shit with you. I'm out of here. Because he never was raped, you know?
Right.
But he wanted to go and win some big award, some Oscar prize. And I was like, okay. So anyway, he took off and I took off. And then he tried to badmouth Blood In, Blood Out. He tried to do all that crap, separate the actors. He was a real pain in the ass.
And you're blowing my mind with this information right now. That's all.
Yeah, I know.
Crazy. I would not have thought
he tried to do all that crap, you know. And I was like, you know what? But that's Hollywood. That's normal. Normal.
Yeah.
It wasn't normal for me because I'm not a Hollywood kind of guy. But it's normal for them, right? That's just normal for them. So anyway, he wrote his screenplay. I wrote mine. We took it to the warden in San Quentin in De La Volada. The warden said to American Me, get the hell out of here with this. This is all fictionalized fantasy. And then he took ours and he said, this is the real story.
Yeah.
So we started filming. We were the first big film company to ever film there. But the warden accepted it, hombre. He said, yeah, this is the real thing. So I said, well, it should be the real thing, hombre. I lived it. You know, I was in prison for almost with all these guys, right? So we did it. The actors were amazing. Even Mighty Mouse, Danny Trejo, you know, he was this little tiny guy, you know, and a cool character he told, but he had a face, you know. He didn't have to talk, just his face. Just give me the face. Leave the rest of his body out, but just put his face there, bro. And then of course Benjamin with his passionate, you know, great actor, and all the other supporting actors, they were amazing, man.
It is a brilliant cast. Everybody is so on point.
Billy Bob Thornton, all the Black brothers from Oakland, they were like geniuses.
Delroy, Tom
what about
Tolles.
Popeye?
Yeah.
Popeye.
Yeah.
Now you take Popeye. He's a stage actor, hombre. He's a Shakespearean actor.
Right. Yeah.
And he was able to transform himself into this incredible, unforgettable character, right?
Yeah.
So going back, the movie comes out. People love it. And then you're not going to believe this. We're sitting in Las Vegas in a theater, and Eisner from Disney is there, the head of Disney. And Disney's Hollywood Pictures is a subsidiary of Disney, right?
Yeah.
So we're sitting there and Disney's his wife, Eisner's wife, says that, oh my God, it's too violent. And the title, Blood In, Blood Out. I'm like, what's wrong with the title, man? The title's great. So it could have been one of the greatest films of the last 50 years. But because the South Central riots were happening, Rodney King was happening, Chicanos were happening, Eisner lost his balls and said, we're going to pull the movie. We're going to pull it.
Yeah. And
not only are they going to pull it, even though in the theaters that it showed, there was not one single fight, not one. And even though in all the theaters that it showed for only 2 days, not only did they pull it, they changed the title.
Right.
To Bound by Honor.
Yeah.
And it was like, a la mode, bro. What the hell did you just do, you know? And despite all of those obstacles, it still went on to become one of the great cult films.
Yeah.
Of this century, right? And great actors like Jesse Borrego, Benjamin Bratt. I mean, come on, those guys are like amazing.
Yeah.
So and it stands the test of time, you know. So shortly after that, I started writing a series for HBO. I wrote a movie for Julia Roberts. I wrote another one for Showtime. And there was always little complications because in Blood In, Blood Out, Taylor Hackett worked so hard to make this thing happen that a lot of us guys didn't have to deal with all the obstacles.
Right.
Because he took care of it for us. So it became a beautiful experience. Now I was experienced, even though the people at HBO were amazing, I met some of the most coolest people there. Showtime, the best. I guess I just lost interest. You know, I was working for, I was doing a movie in Mexico too, and I just lost interest, bro. I just lost it. And I just said, no, I'm not. So even though I was doing the Chicano root story, I kind of just stopped writing and walked away. And same with Showtime, the American Dream for Chicanos and stuff. I kind of walked away from that, and I just left. And then I didn't show up. I took no news reports. I took no TV. I took no nothing, no interviews for the next 15 years. Nada.
Dang.
I just got out of the picture.
Yeah.
Just went back to writing my poetry and became a secluded monk. I bought this beautiful farm that I'm talking to you from right now, north of in New Mexico, north of Santa Fe. I bought this beautiful farm, and I became a farmer, and I wrote another 15 books. I got about 30 books, and my connections were only to New York. I only wrote for New York, for the publishers, published only the books in New York. And just recently, I've been thinking of going back into movie making in Hollywood. So I think in about 2 years, I'll be making movies again, and with Blood and Blood Out too. In about 2 years, I should have it done. I should have the novels that I'm working on right now done, and I should be stepping into a different kind of world where I'll be working with directors and producers in Hollywood again.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. You never know. Yeah.
How long have you been working on this sequel script? Has it been like years
Ideas.
in the making, or?
Yeah, 15 years. But not writing, just driving, a lot of driving on my tractor, driving in the orchards, fishing, hunting. And the whole time that I'm doing my life, in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, well, that wouldn't be a bad opener. And, and then I'll talk to my son, who's a filmmaker, my second son. What do you think of this? He's like, oh, dude, that's incredible, Pops. And then I'll come back at him again 3 months later. What do you think of this one? He's like, oh, man, that's incredible. And he says, you better stop doing that. Write it down. So over the years, in my mind, I began to put puzzle pieces together.
Yeah.
And now I have it. Now I've got it. And I started writing it. And it's powerful, man. It's something like a cross between Ozark and The Wire and Black Panther. If you put those three movies together, you got Blood and Blood Out too.
Interesting. All right.
Except it's technologically driven with the satellites, and La Onda actually controls their own country now. They deposed the president of Guatemala and become the president of Guatemala, and they changed it to La Onda. The entire freaking country is now La Onda.
Damn, that's epic.
And they're the middleman between all the stuff going down in Latin America. They're the kings of Central America, and nothing happens in North America unless they okay it. And it's all run by satellite. And they have the capacity to push one button on a keyboard and open every electronic cell in American prisons. At any point in time, they can release 2 million Chicanos, and it's going to happen. Isn't that interesting? That on a given day, at a certain time, every Chicano in every prison is going to walk out ready for the revolution. Is that insane or what?
That's interesting, man. That is an epic continuation.
Yeah, what happens then when you have 1 million Chicanos coming to meet you? What happens to the cities then? What happens in Los Angeles? What would happen in LA? We've had stories about hurricanes, floods, fires, earthquakes. What would happen in LA if every single ex-con was released and went down to LA? The police force would be useless.
No.
Politicians would be useless. And what if they had a leader that could assume the governorship of the state of California and then quarantine it off in the country and say, you're no longer allowed in here. This is our nation. Then what happened? Holy crap.
Yeah.
Dude. I mean, come on. It's like La Onda's grew up.
Yeah. You kind of picking up with that ending of we're going to spread La Onda gospel everywhere. And now, what do you think Benjamin Bratt's up against now? Yeah.
When he realizes,
Yeah.
Alamori. Now it becomes pretty heavy. Now he has to use his diplomacy and statesmanship to try to come in and convince them, look, this is insane, dude. It's like the Joker and Batman.
Yeah, yeah.
Taking over the city. It's the same thing, except it's run by La Onda.
Yeah.
That's
wow,
insane.
Man. That's going to be a doozy when it's ready. I did want to ask a couple more questions on the movie. I know we're kind of running out of time, but since you were, you wrote it, obviously you were in it, did you do any work with the actors yourselves? Like while you were on set, did Taylor give you like the freedom to be like, this is not how it would go, and let you get your input while you were there in person and help them through it?
I didn't know much about that world,
Mm-hmm.
I was a poet. I was just amazed by their acting abilities. I was blown away.
Yeah.
I mean, when you see some of these people act on location, and you know them because you went out to dinner with them, you went to the gym with them and stuff, and all of a sudden they assume this other character. It really does baffle your sensibility to a degree where you're like, wow, how can they transfer spirits like that?
Yeah, right.
And it just blows you away, man. It's like, wow. I mean, it's true talent. And I gotta hand it to Taylor because he checked with us.
Yeah.
But the decision ultimately was his as the director. And I gotta tell you, he used us as his consultants.
That's good.
But he made some great choices, man.
Yeah.
I mean, these were, he made the careers that for at least 15 of them to go on and have brilliant careers in life.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was him.
I mean, how close were these characters to like real life figures? Because I think everyone in this movie, all these characters, especially our three mains, right? Paco, Crucito, and Miklo. There's so much depth to all of them. I think it's just amazing. It's brilliantly written. I mean, yeah, like how much of it was taken from real life? Because it just seems so clear and fully realized with all of them.
Well, see, that's the brilliance of the actors. They took these roles, they took these actors, and they expanded and deepened the imaginational potential of each one. I mean, they already knew the mythical role that these actors had in our culture and Black culture and white culture. They already knew it, but we were not using these actors as stage props. Many of these actors came from a background where they knew these actors.
Yeah.
So me just putting that down in words, they gave it spirit, they gave it blood and heart, they gave it life. They blew life into these characters because of their backgrounds. They knew it. I mean, it was amazing. Does it remain the same character that I wrote if the actual actor improves and deepens the actual acting? I think it's just a collaboration where imagination comes in and increases the beauty and truth of it. So it was just a great collaboration between writer and actors. I mean, what I wrote, they knew. It wasn't like an alien, something like, I want you to become an equestrian in Queen Anne's Garden in Scotland.
Yeah.
I was like, no, these Chicanos and these Black brothers and these white brothers, they were all like, we know this, man.
Yeah.
And it's like we grew up with this. And that was really the most beautiful timing of the movie itself, because so many of them were in a stage in their life where they knew it. Mm-hmm. And it was still fresh.
Yeah.
And boy, did they play it off. I mean, as a testament to their acting abilities, 20 years later, it still stands as one of the epic cult films of our era.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, wow. I mean, so it's proven its worth over time, and it's going to stay.
Yeah.
We just need another one.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with, like, I always tell people this is my number one favorite movie, and I throw it up there on the pedestal with The Godfather. It's like of that caliber. it's such an epic. Like I said, all the characters are fully realized. It's well directed. It's the music, Bill Conti. It's great. I mean, it's just such a well told story from the very first title to the very end title.
And listen to this. Taylor grew up with Chicanos. He was a poor kid in Califas, you know. The guy grew up, you know, busting his butt. So it wasn't like we had a director who was ooh la la.
Yeah.
No, we had a director who grew up with us, who knew our culture, who respected us, who loved us, you know. So it was like the perfect combination. I mean, the perfect storm, so to speak. But the only thing I regret, and I try to put it into Montana, but I really wish that as many people that saw the movie would read books. You know, our culture is being shot to hell with Netflix and Prime Video and stuff. Less and less people are reading. I don't really, you know, I'm most particularly concerned about the Chicanos, not the blacks or the whites or the Asians. Mm-hmm. In this particular case, the Chicanos are suffering the most from not reading books. I mean, if I were to ask anybody anywhere in the country, black, white, brown, yellow, Asian, whatever, it's the Chicanos who don't read books. And we're so brilliant that if we only read a few, we'd end up at Harvard, you know?
Yeah.
Or Stanford. I mean, why? I mean, you got to read. So if my message 20 years later is that I'm still writing, I'm going to do blah, 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 too, and I'm doing this, the message that I convey to everybody is, please, don't disrespect education and start buying books from us. You got a lot of Chicano and Chicana authors out here that need you to buy our works. You know, people all over the world buy them. Why can't you? It's about you. It's about your culture. So read the damn books. That's the only thing I have to say to the younger generation. Even my own son, I have my 15-year-old, my 18-year-old son. It's hard to get him to read a book, man.
Right.
You know, now my other three sons, they read, but not very much. My two daughters read a lot, you know? So the girls read a lot, and they're going to go on to become doctors. One's going to be a pediatrician, the other one's going to become a doctor. Dude, read books. You know, I mean, that's the last word I have to say on that, Carnal.
Yeah.
Hey, Rudy, I don't know how to thank you. You know what? I get a lot of invitations and stuff, but I purposely chose you and another guy, only you two guys, to come back to. And I don't usually do these things. But out of respect for a young Chicano like you, I chose to do this with you two out of my respect for the younger generation that you are, okay?
Well, thank you so much, man. Well, I appreciate you taking the time to be here, Jimmy. It's been a privilege and an honor. I really appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Okay, well, some of what I said is gonna cause some crazy stuff, so let it roll.
Yeah, will do, man. Thank you. Thank you for listening to the Drinks in a Movie podcast. You can now find us on Instagram at Drinks in a Movie Pod, where we'll be posting photos from all the various films that we discuss. You can also email us at drinksinAmoviepod@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe, and thank you for listening.